What's up, everybody? It's your boy Vent Go Crazy on the Cellar podcast, checking in with you guys on today's installment. Today is Monday, April 18th, approximately 11 o'clock. And the three big-time receivers is Terry McClaurin from the Washington Commanders. You got A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans, and then you have Deebo Samuel. So, why are these things relevant to the Jacksonville Jaguars? Because at the end of the day, all of this stuff wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the Jacksonville Jaguars. By going out, which a lot of people, not just myself, but a lot of talking heads attribute the receiver market being what it is because of what the Jaguars did when they set the receiver market by paying Christian Kirk $18 million a year on a 4-year contract. I want to say it's 5 years, but it's 4-year contract to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. $72 million contract that could go up to $84 million with incentives. Since then, pretty much receivers have been getting like hella paydays, like left and right. Everybody's getting paid. You got Goodwin down in Tampa, and you got DJ Moore up in Carolina. Both of them received $20 million a year contracts from their respective teams. You've seen Tyreek Hill get traded from the Kansas City Chiefs down to the Dolphins, where he received a $30 million per year contract. Devontae Adams couldn't get to an agreement with the Green Bay Packers, so he ended up getting traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, where he's reunited with his college quarterback Derek Carr. He's now receiving a $28 million a year deal. And then you got Steph Diggs up in Buffalo, New York, who just received a $25 million a year contract extension. All because of the Jaguars resetting the market and paying Christian Kirk $18 million a year. Pretty much everybody is like the baseline for elite receivers is going to be like $20 million a year. All right, so on the batting order, we're going to go with Terry McClaurin. So Terry McClaurin has been a relatively productive receiver every single year. 2019, he had 58 catches, 919 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. On 2020, he played in 15 games where he caught 87 receptions on 1,118 yards receiving yard. And then he finished the season with only 4 touchdowns. Yes, not that many touchdowns, but at the same time, like, he's pretty much their only receiving weapon out in Washington. So you kind of can't hate on these numbers, man. And then last year, he played in 17 games, 77 receptions, 1,053 yards receiving, and he got 5 touchdowns. So pretty much every single year he's been in Washington, he's pretty much been their only receiving threat since day one. And also being their only receiving threat, dude has pretty much posted 1,000 yards receiving every single year. So what does that mean for these contract discussions? So like I said, the baseline for these elite receivers right now is like $20 million. Right now, some people are projecting that his contract is going to be somewhere between $21 and $23 million a year. Especially, it's probably going to be closer to $23 million a year, especially considering the fact that I think he was a 3rd round pick. Seattle Seahawks pretty much had to break the bank on Russell Wilson's contract, because they felt like they owed him for all the prior success that he's had, in addition to projecting for all the future success he's going to have for the organization. It's going to be pretty much the same situation with Terry McClaurin playing receiver. They pretty much owe this dude. This dude's been a top 15, top 10 receiver, definitely top 10 receiver in the NFL ever since he's came on the scene. So they pretty much got to pay this dude. So right now, their current cap situation, a couple dudes on their team, they cut Landon Collins, which will go in effect post June 1st. And post June 1st, their cap situation should be sitting around $20.36 million. And you got, I mean, that's also if you take out the $4.4 million that they're gonna have to use to sign their draft pick. Their coach Rivera has already expressed how much he wants McClaurin back, and pretty much everybody's saying like, yeah, you need to pay this dude. Like, pretty much y'all have no one else to pay. Like, this has to be the person to receive that paycheck, especially since he's earned it. So my current projection for McClaurin is, yeah, he's gonna probably continue to hold out training or workouts or whatever like that, but then sometime after June 1st, that's when their money and stuff is gonna be in order, and then they're gonna go ahead and resign my dude to a $23 million a year deal that's gonna take place prior to training camp. So yeah, next you got your boy A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans. So A.J. Brown has just almost identical as McClaurin, been super productive straight out of the box, except for this last year, which they pretty much flopped with Julio Jones being in the fold. But I don't necessarily blame Julio. Like, I think they had a regression at quarterback with Ryan Tannehill. But in 2019, when he came on scene, he played in 16 games, 52 receptions off of 84 targets, 1,051 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. Followed up that performance in 2020 with 70 catches on 106 targets, 1,075 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. In 2021, like I said, that's when they had their bit of a regression. He only played in 13 games, 63 receptions on 105 targets, 869 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns. That was a slump year, but it's not that bad in the grand scheme of how bad their offense was. Like once Derrick Henry, who was having like a historic year rushing, like went down with an injury, pretty much their offense depended on Ryan Tannehill to pretty much shoulder the load. With AJ Brown's situation, the Titans, they're projecting his contract to be around $22.7 million a year, $20 million if he can't stay healthy. Well, their current cap situation is negative $3.3 million, so that like the Tennessee Titans are kind of like flat out broke. Once Julio Jones is released, goes into effect June 1st, their cap situation will be sitting around somewhere around upwards of $6 million, but they still have to pay that $4.4 million for their rookies. The Jets like basically put it out there like, hey, they're going to be eyeballing the situation for the Tennessee Titans and AJ Brown. And if the Tennessee Titans feel like they can't pay AJ Brown, the New York Jets are pretty much like, hey, we will take him. We will pay this dude because we need a receiver, because the Jets are pretty much barren at the receiver position as well. The general manager of the Tennessee Titans pretty much came out and said, nah, we want to keep AJ Brown. We see him as a part of our future, so on and so forth. So no need to even worry about this situation over here. We got this over here. Even though all this has been said, I still do not foresee, like, because there's going to be a lot of red tape that's going to have to be taken care of for the Tennessee Titans in order to actually retain AJ Brown, especially at a premium price that these receivers are currently receiving. So they already restructured Ryan Tannehill's contract last year, which he had like $11 million cap hit. They restructured his contract in order to get Julio Jones to sign with him, which ended up being like a huge failure. And now he has like a $30+ million cap hit, which makes him untradeable, unreleasable. Like they're basically chained to Ryan Tannehill. So, which means they're probably gonna have to get a lot cheaper at other positions in order to mask that cap hit. So my prediction is that AJ Brown will get traded. When will he get traded? I can't tell you, but I'm thinking he's going to get traded. It's not going to be the New York Jets. It's probably going to be the Chicago Bears, who currently sit in a similar situation as the New York Jets. They only have one receiver on their entire roster who's cleared 1,000 yards receiving. They need to replace talent because they lost Allen Robinson. They also like one of the top 5 most cap spaces in 2023. So they need to pretty much surround Justin Fields with some talent and get that man some help. The same way the New York Jets are pretty much thinking they're gonna do with Zach Wilson. But yeah, moving on. So the next dude we're going to talk about is going to be Deebo Samuels. Deebo Samuels, unlike the other 2 receivers, hasn't been that productive until late. Like he just recently had his coming out party this last season. His first season in 2019, he played in 15 games, only 57 receptions, but only on 81 targets. Had 802 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. In 2020, he only played in 7 games due to injuries. Receptions, he only had 33 receptions on 44 targets, 391 yards that year, and 1 touchdown. And then you have his coming out party where Deebo Samuels played in 16 games, had 77 receptions on 121 targets, 1,400 yards receiving, and 6 touchdowns. And let's not forget that I want to say like 8 weeks into the season, he became like running back 2 for the San Francisco 49ers, where he had 59 rushing attempts. He had 365 yards on the ground, which averages out to 6.2 yards a rush, and he had 8 touchdowns on the ground. What does that mean for Deebo Samuels? Deebo is in a similar situation to the Tennessee Titans with AJ Brown, where they pretty much they're not in the best of cap space situations right now. So yeah, they can move around a bunch of contracts and, you know, front load a bunch of contracts and turn a lot of those salaries into guaranteed signing bonuses and stuff like that. But, you know, like I said with the Ryan Tannehill thing, like that'll end up ballooning the cap hit later. So with that being said, Deebo's contract is looking like he's going to be getting paid somewhere between $22 and $24 million a year. The current cap space is there like negative as of like, I want to say as of like March or whatever, they're like negative 5.62 million. I'm pretty certain they've cleared up some of those cap space issues. But the energy that's been put out with like Deebo Samuels on Instagram removing every single thing that possibly correlates him to the San Francisco 49ers. Not only do I think they might have closed down on a contract extension talk, it might have become kind of personal. At least Deebo's taking it a little personal for him to be able to remove all San Francisco 49er pictures off of his social media. With that being said, Deebo's not the only star that the San Francisco 49ers need to be trying to work out a contract extension with. Nick Bosa is up for a contract extension. So now they kind of got to make a judgment call on, hey, we have this receiver that might be a one year wonder, and who do we want to extend? Who do we want to prioritize? And if I were the San Francisco 49ers, I would prioritize resigning Nick Bosa. Even if they were to find a way to find the money to resign Deebo Samuels, I still feel like they're too far gone based off the issues that have been taken to social media with the subliminal, with the picture removals, stuff like that with Deebo Samuels. I think he'll end up getting traded ultimately. Where do I see Deebo Samuels going? Because I don't see the San Francisco 49ers wanting to keep Deebo Samuels within conference. They would possibly send Deebo Samuels to New York, where he can be in a bigger market. And like the New York Jets, they're already willing to pay, since they have already pretty much tipped their hat and told everybody, hey, like we're looking out for the AJ Brown situation to find out whether or not we can trade for that dude. I can see them grabbing a Deebo Samuels, and it'll probably be beneficial for both parties. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Those are my projections. Those are pretty much what I'm thinking as far as the situation with the big three receivers that are holding out from training camp. Let me know what you think.
Flexing ain't discreet about it. Extra read about it.